In this video, we're going to go ahead and implement our nav drawer. So by the end of this video, we should have the framework in place to be able to accomplish this sort of view. So yeah, I guess let's go ahead and get started. The first thing I want to do is jump into base activity. One thing that I need to do is I need to create an accessor for our toolbar. Because our nav drawer contains all the responsibilities of dealing with our drawer layout, which our drawer layout again is responsible for sliding in our nav drawer and sliding it out. We need to be able to hook our toolbar up with our drawer layout. In order to do that, we need to create an accessor on our base activity to allow us to get a reference to this protected field. So we need to be able to get this field in this class. To do that, we need an accessor. So down here at the bottom, I'm simply going to say public toolbar get toolbar, and it's simply going to return toolbar. So that is our accessor, not a whole lot to it. So let's jump back into our nav drawer and let's just implement this. Just go from top to bottom. I mean, most of the methods are pretty self-explanatory as far as what they do. There's going to be a couple nuances here and there. So let's get started. The first thing is we need to alias out our activity. So we need to set our local field activity to the base activity that was passed in. Second thing is we need to instantiate our items. So I'm simply going to instantiate those. In Java, you are not required to specify the generic type parameter for something where it can be inferred. So I don't have to type in array list of nav drawer item. I can simply just do array list closed, or empty generic parameter list, and it'll figure that out for me at compile time. Next up, I need to get my drawer layout. So I'm going to say drawer layout equals, now this is tricky. How do I get this? Well, I'm going to set up a convention. I'm going to say if you have a nav drawer and you want to use this nav drawer class, you must have an object, a nav drawer layout at some point in your view hierarchy that has a particular ID. So I'm going to say drawer layout equals cast to drawer layout activity.findViewById r.id, and I'm just going to say drawer underscore layout for the name. Then I'm going to hit Alt-Enter to import that R. However, this is going to error out. This code is going to error out until somewhere in my layout files I have an element with an ID of drawer layout. The error will go away at the end of this video when we make that happen, or in the next video depending on time. So we have drawer layout, so we're getting our drawer layout. Now let's go ahead and get our nav drawer. So our nav drawer view, it's the same deal. It's going to be a view group, and we're going to say activity. We're going to say if you have a nav drawer, you must have a view group named ID or with an ID of nav drawer. So those are our conventions. Then if you fail with those conventions, I'm going to throw a runtime error. So I'm going to say if drawer layout equals null or nav drawer view equals null, throw new runtime exception. Please have, or to use this class, you must have a view, or you must have views with the IDs of drawer layout and nav drawer. So that's a simple, I know it's considered bad form to throw a exception inside of a constructor, but I consider this to be something where that's appropriate, because basically we want to tell somebody, yeah, you're misusing this class if you don't have a drawer layout and a nav drawer. Once we've done that, we can go ahead and mess with our toolbar. So I'm going to say toolbar equals activity.getToolbar. Then I'm going to simply say toolbar.setNavigationIcon, and I'm going to set it to r.drawable, and then I'm going to set it to one of those icons I imported. In this case, it's going to be Action Navigation Menu. Then I'm going to say toolbar.setNavigation onClickListener, new onClickListener. And then I'm going to say set open not is open. So what am I doing here? I'm setting the navigation onClickListener of the toolbar to toggle whether or not the nav drawer is currently being shown. So again, this is why in our base class or a base activity we needed to have a accessor for our get toolbar. All right, let's jump down to add item. What do we want to do here? Well, basically, what we want to do, it's going to be a little interesting, the way this code is going to be written. And it brings up, well, no, actually, basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to say items dot add item. And then I'm going to say item.navDrawer equals this. So I'm reaching in to the navDrawer item and accessing a protected member. Now this is legal because this class is a child class of navDrawer. So I can reach in and mess with his protected members. So that's what I'm doing right here. I'm saying item.navDrawer equals this. So that way the navDrawer items can refer back into the navDrawer that they've been added to. All right, is open. This is pretty straightforward. Is open is simply going to be our, we're going to check our our drawer layout. I'm going to say drawer layout dot is drawer open, gravity start. Set open is going to be pretty straightforward too. So our drawer layout, we have our open drawer and we have our closed drawer methods. We don't have a open, a corresponding method to the set open. So what we have to do is we have to write a conditional. I have to say if is open, then set drawer layout dot open drawer gravity dot start. Else drawer layout dot close drawer gravity dot start. Okay, so what about set selected item? This is going to be pretty straightforward logic too. If we have an item that's selected, so if selected item does not equal null, then say selected item dot set selected false. Otherwise, set selected item to item, and then say selected item dot set selected true. So pretty standard selection logic right there. Finally, we have our create method. Our create method is pretty straightforward. We're simply going to say, we're going to alias out our layout inflator. So I'm going to say layout inflator equals activity.getLayoutInflator. Then I'm going to loop over every single navDrawer item that we have. So I'm going to say navDrawer item in items. And I'm going to say item.inflate, inflator, and navDrawer view. So I'm passing in the layout inflator as well as the navDrawer view that we want to inflate inside of. And that's it. That is the implementation of our navDrawer. It really straightforward. Most of the code is inside the navDrawer items themselves, which I think is how it should be, because it gives the navDrawer items a lot of flexibility. And I encourage this sort of object-oriented design where the navDrawer class itself is nothing more than a bag of navDrawer items. And then the navDrawer items get to decide all the fun stuff. They get to decide how they're inflated, how they're selected, and so on. So let's go ahead and start off with the basic navDrawer item. How do we want to handle this? Well, the constructor is pretty self-explanatory. This.text equals text. This.badge equals badge. This.icon drawable equals icon drawable. And this.container ID equals container ID. That's pretty much all there is to it as far as the constructor. The inflate method is where things get fun. So let's go ahead and I'm going to reorder these methods here. I want inflate and set selected to appear up here before our setters. The reason is I think it's going to make more logical sense, and I hope you agree once we flesh out these methods and actually implement them. But I think logically, based on the order of how these things are going to be executed, I think it makes more sense to have inflate and set selected at the top. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to start off by getting a reference to the container. Remember how we have this container ID, which determines where this item should be attached to? Which view group should it be attached to? So let's go ahead and figure that out first. I'm going to say view group container, or I'm not going to call it container. Well, that's not a good thing here because we have the best name for it is container. I'm going to rename this parameter to navDrawer view instead of container. So then I'm going to say container equals cast to view group, and then I'm going to say navDrawer view dot find view by ID, and then we're going to pass in container ID. Then I'm going to say if container equals null, throw new runtime exception. And then I'm going to say nav drawer item text could not be attached to view group. View not found. So just a little sanity check in there. And then what I'm going to do is, now that we have a reference to the container, we can inflate our group, or our view. So I'm going to say view equals inflate. Oh, come on. Inflator dot inflate. And now what am I going to pass in here? Well, I'm going to pass in a reference to a layout file that doesn't exist yet. So I'm going to pass in r.layout.list. What do I want to call this? List item nav drawer, I think, with the view group of container. And we're not going to pass in false for attached to root, because that's the default behavior, and we do want to attach the root. We want to not only inflate this view, but we want it to be attached to this particular view group. So basically, what will happen here is it'll inflate this view, it'll instantiate it and fill it up with a bunch of fun stuff, and then it's going to add it to the view group that we specified. Now that we have our view, we can get our icon, our text view, we can fill in all of these guys right here, now that we have our view. So let's just go down the list. I'm going to say icon equals cast to image view, view.findView by ID, r, and I'm going to reference IDs that don't exist. Now these will be IDs of views that we're going to have inside of this layout that we'll create later. List item nav drawer icon. Then I'm going to say text view equals cast to text view, view.findView, RID, list item nav drawer text. And then we're going to have badge text, badge text view equals cast to text view, view.findView by ID, RID, list item nav drawer badge. And then I'm going to also establish the default color. So the default color is going to be set to the color of the text view. Remember, we do that because we get the default color of the text view so that when we select the item and change it to a different color and then unselect it again, it gets returned back to the color it used to be. So I'm going to say default text color equals text view dot, and I'm just simply going to say get current text color. Okay, so now that I've done that, I can now fill in all of my views with their corresponding data. So I can say icon dot set drawable, or set source, sorry, or I always forget this one. Set image resource, and then I'm going to pass in our icon drawable resource. Then I can say text view dot set text text, and then I can say for the badge text view, I'm going to say if badge does not equal null, then badge text view dot set text badge. Otherwise, I want to make it disappear. I want to say badge text view dot set visibility view dot gone. And really that should be it. We set our icon, we set our text view, and we set our badge text view. And that's all we need to do to initialize this list item template that we're going to be creating later. Next up, we have our setSelected method. So our setSelected method is simply responsible for colorizing things. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say if is selected. So if we want to have this item look like it's selected, then I'm going to say view.setBackground resource. And I'm going to say r.drawable dot, and then here I'm going to say list item nav drawer selected item background. So what is going on here? Well, I'm going to create a drawable that's essentially going to be a solid color in this case. Now, I want to use a drawable resource so that I can change how the drawable looks by just editing an XML file. So that's why I'm making it a drawable resource. So next up, what I want to do is I want to go ahead and change the text color. So I'm going to say text view dot, and then I'll say set text color. Now I want to get a color resource. To get a color resource, it's pretty straightforward. I first need to get an activity, which I can access by doing navdrawer dot activity dot get resources dot, and then say get color, and passing in a color resource. And the color resource is going to be r dot color, and then we can go ahead and do list item nav drawer selected item text color. So pretty long, pretty descriptive names. I could probably have shortened them, but I wanted it to be pretty obvious what these drawables and colors are. Okay, so that's what happens if we're selected. We change the background and we change the color of the thing. We could do whatever we wanted here. In fact, we could subclass this out, overwrite it, and have custom behavior if we select the item. So that's pretty cool. The next thing we want to do is we want to go ahead and do the opposite if we want to unselect this item. To do the opposite, we simply say view.setBackground and pass in null to set the background back to transparent. And then we say TextView.setTextColor to default text color. So again, this is why I established the default text color when we inflated the view. All right, so now let's go ahead and do set text, set badge, and set icon. Now, the reason we're doing these last is because they have two scenarios, two cases. A, is this set text method being invoked before we are inflated, or is it being invoked after we're being inflated? If it's being invoked before we're inflated, all we have to do is just change the value of our text field. If it's being invoked after we're inflated, we have to set this field and we have to update the text view that was inflated to represent that field. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say if view equals null, or sorry, I'm first going to do what we have to do regardless. I'm going to say this.text equals text. Then I'm going to say if view does not equal null, then textView.setText text. For the badge, I'm going to do something a little bit more complicated. I'm going to say this badge equals badge. Then I'm going to say if view does not equal null, then I'm going to open up a block, and I'm going to say if view does not equal null, if badge does not equal null, then I'm going to say badge text view dot set visibility visibility visible. So if we set a badge, set it to visible. Otherwise, set badge text view set visibility view gone. And finally, we'll do the same thing with our icon. This the icon drawable equals icon drawable. And then I'm going to say if view does not equal null, then icon dot set drawable or set resource, set image resource. Oh, come on. Set image resource. Give me a resource. There you go. Icon drawable. All right. Now we have our onClick method. So what's our onClick method going to do? Pretty straightforward. We're going to say navdrawer.select or set selected item this. So when we click on our navdrawer item, we are simply going to set ourselves as selected. All right, the last thing we have to do inside this file anyway is our activity navdrawer item. Now this is going to be pretty straightforward too. All we're going to need to do is we're going to need to override the inflate method and the onClick method. So let's do the inflate method first. I'm going to say public void inflate, layout inflator inflator, view group nav drawer. Okay, so inside of inflate, what I'm going to say is I'm first going to inflate the superclass. So I'm going to pass that in. So this will actually perform the inflation, create the item, place it. So this will actually create one of these rows here, right? Then I'm going to, because this is a specific for launching new activities, I'm going to say if navdrawer.activity. Oh, come on. If navdrawer, or whoops, we are being overridden. If this.navdrawer.activity.getClass equals target activity, then what we want to do is we want to say set selected item, or sorry, this.navdrawer.set selected item this. So what are we doing here? We're saying if we're already on the activity that this item represents, then just auto-select us. Make our background appear as if it's selected. See how I'm in the contacts activity? And see how the contacts item is selected by default? That's this code right here. That's it saying, okay, so now we already are this activity. Let's select ourselves. The final thing we have to do is our onClick method. So I'm going to say public void onClick. Oh, come on. View. And then I'm going to say navdrawer.close, or sorry, set open false. So if we click on an item, set open false. Then I'm going to say if the navdrawer.activity.getClass equals the target activity, then return. So basically, what is this saying? This is saying if you click on the activity that you're already on, so if you click on contacts, the navdrawer will close and nothing will happen because we're already on that activity. So we can simply return. Next up, I want to do super onClick view. So invoke the super method or super class. And then the final thing I want to do is I'll put a to-do in here because we're going to do this later. I'm going to say to-do animations. But we're going to do really simply, we're going to do this. I'm going to say navdrawer.activity.startActivity, new intent, navdrawer.activity, and then finally the class that we want to start. And the class that we want to start is going to be target activity. The final thing we want to do is finish the activity that we're currently on. So navdrawer.activity.finish. And that is our activity navdrawer item. So yeah, that is the that's a really simple, straightforward way, or this is an example of how you can kind of think of your own abstractions to make working with Android easier. So this is a great little lesson in some object-orientedness and how you can use it to make your life easier. Because now we have a very simple but very powerful way of expressing our nav drawers in a lot of different circumstances. All that's really left here on this implementation is to implement our IDs and then our layouts. So after we do that, then it's just a matter of setting up our nav drawer, creating our other top level activities, and having everything work. So we'll see you guys in the next video.